So, good evening. So let's start with our motivation. So, things appear to us as if they had their own essence, something that made them what they are from their own side. So you can take an example maybe of a person that you know very well, and when you think of their body and mind, or when you think of them, there just seems to be a real person there, kind of independently having the being who they are. So if they're your friend or a relative or an enemy, you know, whatever they are, they exist that way. They exist with their own personality. So if things existed like that, with some essence that made them what they are, and that essence were something independent of everything else, then that person could never change. They would be frozen in time and space because their essence would be independent of everything else, so it couldn't be influenced by causes and conditions. It would just be there forever like that. But does that person exist that way? Are they there forever just like they appear to you? Do they have some kind of personality that is unchangeable? Are they always going to be in the same role in relationship to you? Or are they always going to even look the same? Be in the same body forever and ever? So we can clearly see that people don't exist in some kind of self-enclosed, frozen manner. They change. They change due to causes and conditions. So they don't have a fixed personality. They're not always going to be in a particular relationship with us. In fact, they're not always even going to be who they are right now. They're going to die, their consciousness will go on, be born in a different body, who you probably won't even recognize in their next rebirth or in your next rebirth. So when we think of people as frozen, self-enclosed entities, and when we think of them as changing, conditioned phenomena, we get two very different feelings about who they are and how we relate to them. So which one is more realistic? And similarly, if you look at yourself in the same way, you know, we see that we aren't some kind of fixed person who has a certain personality forever and ever and ever. That we too exist as a conditioned phenomena. Changing, dependent. And when we think about ourselves in that way, it gives us a very different feeling about who we are and who we can become. So this is why realizing emptiness is important. Because when we are able to let go of this wrong view of ourselves and of others as concrete personalities, so much space opens up. So much potential opens up simply by changing our view. And so in order to benefit all beings by having a correct view of how things actually exist, then let's listen and contemplate the Dharma this evening. Should that give you some different kind of feeling? Yeah? So, we can tell that our ordinary way of looking at ourselves and others, everything is so limited, so concrete. Yeah? But when we ask if we and other people actually exist in that way, we see that we don't, we can't. Yeah. Do you have a fixed personality that's never ever going to change? So that for all endless time, you're going to have the same personality problems you have now? Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. So all these things are conditioned. They're conditioned by causes, causes by other conditions. They exist, amidst this whole interrelated network. Yeah? So if we begin to see ourselves that way, it feels a little strange at the beginning. Yeah, because we're used to seeing ourselves as some kind of independent, concrete personality. But when we realize, even get some slightest feeling that we aren't, then, we can see, wow, all this stuff I hang on to right now is not me. It's all made up. Yeah? And what I am can be conditioned in a whole other way, Maybe even becoming a bodhisattva and a Buddha. How about that? Okay? So it's good to remember this on a daily basis. It helps us not to get so stuck in our self-conceptions or in our attachments to other people. Because when we think, so-and-so is like this, and they are my friend, relative, whatever they are, and think of them as existing that way from their own side without being conditioned, then again, everything's very concrete. And I have a problem with this person, it's never gonna change. Come on, they're changing, we're changing. Problems are only things that are labeled, designated in dependence upon certain circumstances. So we don't need to concretize things and imprison ourselves. Okay. So, you said you had some questions from last week. Do you want to start with those? Okay.
I think pretty easy. You were talking about verse 45.
Mm-hmm.
And you were also talking, I think, about discarding the three principal aspects of the path. Which they say too is this free of assertions of inherent existence or non-existence.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the same thing, those two parts, right?
Yeah, in verse 45, through knowledge one subdues the notions of existence, in other words, inherent existence, and non-existence, meaning total non-existence.
And then by doing that, you're liberated from samsara.
Yeah.
But are they necessarily, they would have to have known then that appearances are infallible, dependent arisings, which is the line right before.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's different levels of dependent arising, and to realize emptiness the first time, it's sufficient to have to understand conditioned things as dependent on causes and conditions, and have some general idea that they're dependent on terms and concepts, although we don't realize that they're dependent on terms and concepts, fully realize that and understand that until after we realize emptiness.
They're not really levels of realization of emptiness, are there?
Well, there are in the sense that there's realizing emptiness by inference and realizing directly. Yeah. But there are different levels of dependent arising, different types of dependent arising.
To have a full an accurate realization of emptiness, it seems funny to me. It seems like you would have to have all the realizations of dependent arising.
You don't have, you realize that things are dependent on causes and conditions. That's sufficient initially, but then when you come out of your meditative equipoise, that's when you gain the actual realization of things depending on terms and concepts. Okay, you have a general understanding of that before, but you don't really understand it until after you've seen emptiness, and when you come out of that direct perception, then you still have to establish conventional existence. So how do things exist conventionally? Nominally. Yeah?
That would be a process.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mean to realize emptiness the first time directly? You need to only realize that things are dependent on causes and conditions?
I think it might be both. Definitely inferential. I think it might be also, although, when you realize emptiness directly on path of seeing, you see the emptiness of all phenomena. So you would think that you would have to understand dependence on parts in that case as well, you would think. Yeah?
And I was wondering, I think one time you corrected what you said, so I wanted to make sure I understood. You were talking about how the lower schools think about nirvana, and then how the Jnanavakas think of nirvana.
The which school?
The
The Madhyamaka, yeah, the conscious continues.
But it continues in a purified form,
Mm-hmm.
non-polluted form. What's purified?
Purified means that it doesn't have, that consciousness is free of the grasping at inherent existence. Yeah. So the Buddha has aggregates. Yeah. The Buddha has aggregates, but they're purified. Have aggregates, and they're partially purified. They're purified of the afflicted obscurations, but not the cognitive ones. Okay. Is that it? Should I go on? Okay. So, I think we were on verse 49 last time. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about it already. You know that this verse talks about two kinds of dependence. One is mutual dependence, long and short, depend on each other. You and me depend on each other. Yeah. That all these, there's so many different categories that, or labels, you know, designations that depend on each other. So something being a cause and something else being an effect, you know, that depends on each other. So actually it's not just a thing of the names being dependent, but, you know, what those things are, how they function in the conventional world is dependent. So student and teacher are dependent, parent and child are dependent. Okay, things like that. And then then the second line was saying when the lamp's flame is not produced, then the light also doesn't arise. So that's talking about causal dependence. When you don't have the cause, the effect doesn't come. And so if we relate that to the 12 links, when ignorance is eliminated, then formative actions, consciousness, and so on are also cease. Without, you know, when you eliminate the cause, everything that follows it, follows from the cause, ceases. Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah? If we can get the root rot out of the forest, then there's not going to be dead trees from root rot. Okay? So like that. But good to not just think of gardening examples, because they really want us to think of how we exist and, you know, how we come into being in samsara. Okay, so verse 50 and 51 are read together. Seeing that an effect arises from a cause, one does not claim that causality is non-existent. Having accepted conventional causality in accord with the way it arises for the world, from conceptual fabrication. Okay, and then verse 51, ultimate causality is refuted. It would be absolutist to accept that it has not arisen from conceptual fabrication, and that it is truly real, just as it is. Its ultimate reality is not accepted. Thus, not relying on the two extremes, one is liberated. Okay, so verse 50 is refuting the extreme of nihilism or non-existence, and verse 51 is refuting the extreme of absolutism or existence, inherent existence. Okay, and the purpose of these two verses is to help us to understand that realizing non-duality brings liberation. So as long as we hold to one of the two extremes, liberation is impossible. Okay? So if we look at verse 50, yeah, seeing that an effect rises from a cause, one does not claim that causality is non-existent. Okay? So we see that results come from causes, so causality exists. Yeah? So causality exists conventionally. Yeah, in the way it arises for the world, meaning it exists by being merely imputed, merely designated. In other words, causation is conceptually fabricated. Yeah, conceptually fabricated sounds weird, doesn't it? Like, well, I don't know. The other one sounds more real. Conceptually fabricated sounds made up. But it is kind of made up, in the sense that causes and effects don't exist as such from their own side. They exist by being designated. Because, when you look at something, if I ask you, is a seed a cause or an effect? What is it? It's the result of its cause, and it's the cause of its result. Okay? So it doesn't exist inherently as either a cause or result, only in terms of, in relationship to either its cause or its result does it become one or the other. Okay? So conventional, reliable cognizers know that effects come from causes. We know that if you mix all the ingredients for a cake together and put it in the oven, you get a cake. Okay? So here Nagarjuna, by asserting conventional existence, is showing that he is not a nihilist. He's not saying that nothing whatsoever exists. So even though he's denying inherent existence, he's not denying all existence. He's not a nihilist. Okay? And in the text, he shows that he accepts causality on the nominal level because he explains all the causes to attain a higher rebirth. Remember, we went through all of that. Later on, he's going to explain all the causes to attain the Buddha's 32 signs, and he's also going to explain the causes by which bodhisattvas progress through the 10 bhumis. So if Nagarjuna was a nihilist and didn't believe anything existed, he wouldn't be explaining all these different kinds of causes and effects. You with me? Okay. So that's verse 50. Then verse 51, he also doesn't abide in the extreme of absolutism, which is the extreme of existence, meaning adherence to inherent existence. And he doesn't abide in that extreme because he refutes ultimate existence and true existence, of causes and conditions and of everything, and asserts that things do not exist inherently the way they appear to. Okay? So causes and their effects do not exist ultimately and cannot be found by ultimate analysis. Something that exists ultimately, when we asked ourselves, what is this thing really? We would be able to find something that we can point to. But anything we pick, if we ask ourselves, what is it really? We can't find anything that we specifically can point to. The more we analyze, the more it just disintegrates in front of us in that sense. Okay, so causes and effects don't exist ultimately, and they can't be found by ultimate analysis. Ultimate analysis is the analysis by which you look for, what is this object really? What really is the referent of this term? Okay? So when we look for things through ultimate analysis, we can't find them. They cannot bear analysis, but we do find their emptiness. Okay? But when we look for emptiness under analysis, we cannot find emptiness. All we find is the emptiness of emptiness. Okay, so in this way, Nagarjuna abides in the middle way view, free from absolutism and nihilism. He asserts things conventionally exist, and he says they don't inherently exist. Okay, so that's the prasangika view, But the Svatantrikas, they disagree. They're also Madhyamikas, but they make a difference between true existence and inherent existence. And they say that nothing truly exists, but things do conventionally exist inherently. Because if they didn't have something that makes them on the conventional level, then you could call anything anything. But the fact that we have to give things particular labels indicates that they have something from their own side that makes them what they are. That's the Svatantrika view. The Prasangikas say, if you say that, you're saying they're inherently existent through and through. Yeah. So they say to the Svatantrikas, that's what you're saying is rubbish. Okay? So the Svatantrika position is interesting because they will use the reason of dependent arising to show that things do not inherently exist. No, do not truly exist. I'm sorry. They'll show that they do not truly exist. And for them, the measure of true existence is existing without being posited or designated through the force of appearing to a non-defective awareness. Okay? So something that doesn't exist in that way would be truly existent. Okay, so they say, yes, things are designated, but first they have to appear to a non-defective awareness, on the conventional level, and that non-defective awareness sees that they have something in them inherently that makes them what they are, and then they're designated that. Okay? That's what the Svatantrikas say. Prasangikas say, that's crazy. Yeah? You can't say that, because then they would be inherently existent through and through. Okay? So the Svatantrikas still believe that some, objects, that objects have some degree of independent existence, although they use the reasoning of dependent arising to refute their having inherent existence. Okay, so they don't realize the internal contradictions in their assertions. They don't realize that if you use dependent and arising as a reason to refute true existence, it also refutes inherent existence. Okay, so they don't see that. Yeah. And they don't see that reliance of one thing on another means that those things cannot be truly existent. Whatever kind of dependence you have, if one thing relies on another, they cannot exist independently with their own essence or identity. Okay? So, if you have studied the philosophical tenet systems, you'll understand some of this. If you haven't, then as you study the tenet systems more, this will become clearer to you. Okay?
So just that their definition of inherent existence is different? Is that where the main piece is? They don't have it as synonymous to true existence. They have it as being different.
Well, yeah, in some way they're saying, yes, things, basically what it is, they're saying ultimately, things are not inherently existent. They cannot be found when analyzed. But on the conventional level, there is some small thing that makes them what they are, although they still need to be designated on top of that.
And that's the main piece that makes them different than the personic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and well, then there's other things like Guy was explaining, whether you how you use syllogisms and and consequences and kind of different things like that. What is a valid, reliable cognizer? There's some other differences as well. Okay, but most of the differences can be traced back to this one, and the whole thing about commonly appearing objects and a syllogism. Okay. So 52 and 53 go together. Okay? So 52 says, a form that is viewed from afar is seen clearly by those nearby. If a mirage were actually water, why would those nearby not see it? And then 53, as in the case of a mirage, those far away who view the world see it to be real just as it is. But being signless, it is not seen by those nearby. So signless means having a sign of true or inherent existence. Okay, so this is an example of realizing and not realizing the suchness or the emptiness of things. Okay, so the example is, let me just change this. Okay. So from a distant mountain, people who are thirsty, let's put lost in the desert. Okay. So from a distant mountain, people who are lost in the desert see a place where sunlight and sand meet. And they believe there's water there. Yeah, the sun and the sunlight meet, or the asphalt and the sunlight meet, and there's a mirage, so there's the appearance of water. They believe that there's water there. Yeah, lost in the desert, they're really thirsty. They start running towards the water, only to find out when they arrive there that there's no water, that it was a mirage. But if the mirage were actually water, if there were water really there, then as they got closer, water should appear more and more clearly to them. But the opposite happens. Okay? So it's kind of like things appear to exist by their own essence. If they really did, the more and more we analyze them to search for that essence, the clearer that essence should become. But the opposite happens. We can't find that essence. In the same way as the thirsty people can't find any water. Okay? So being far from the correct view, ordinary people see the world as truly or inherently existent. Okay? If things existed that way, then those inherently existent things should become more and more vividly apprehendable the more we analyze to find them. Okay? However, that's not the case, and Aryas, who have really penetrated analysis, find quite the opposite, that instead of finding some inherently existent thing, they find the absence of an inherently existent thing. Yeah? Just like the thirsty people, instead of finding water, found the absence of water. Okay? So, here we see the importance of analysis, because, analysis makes us really investigate, what is this? It appears this way, but what is it? And that's an important thing, because if we just take things on the level of appearance without asking ourselves if those appearances are true, we could wind up in some really big messes. Yeah? Like, for example, you look on the TV screen and there's people there. Yeah. And all of a sudden, somebody in the, if you think those are real people in the TV screen, then when somebody screams in pain, out of compassion, you want to rescue them, so you stick your hand in the middle of the TV screen to pull them out. Not so smart, huh? You're going to get cut. Or blown up, or who knows what happens when you stick your fist through a TV screen, okay? So, we have to analyze appearances. Things look like that, but are they actually like that or not? Okay? It's like, with money, you could go to somewhere and somebody could give you a whole lot of money and it could be completely counterfeit. But if you don't analyze and make sure that, it has all the things that it's supposed to have, then when you go to spend it, it's going to be useless. Okay? Okay, so, so the Aryas see that the appearance of true existence is false because they see the absence of truly existent things. And so thus they recognize that true grasping is an erroneous mind. The mind that grasps things as truly existence is a wrong mind. Okay? So just as the mirage does not exist as water, although it appears to be water, all phenomena do not exist from their own side, although they appear to. Okay? So just as the perception of a mirage and the thought this is water are false, so too perceiving and grasping things as truly existent are, that both of those are false and erroneous. Okay? Now, here's an interesting thing. Except for the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, all other consciousnesses of ordinary beings are polluted by the appearance of true existence. Yeah, every single, this is mind-boggling, every single consciousness we ordinary beings have, actually it should be sentient beings, not ordinary beings. Yeah? Okay? So every single consciousness of a sentient being, including the 10th level bodhisattvas that are not directly perceiving emptiness, are mistaken in that true things appear truly existent to them, although they aren't. Yeah. So even after you've realized emptiness directly in meditative equipoise, when you arise from that, the Aryas arise from that, or Arhats arise from that, they're walking around doing things still appear truly existent to them. But the difference is they know that appearance is false. Whereas everything appears truly existent to us, and as we look around this room, we think that what we're perceiving is actually what's there. Yeah. We don't doubt what we're perceiving at all, do we? When we look out, here's all these people, here's Chenrezig Hall, here's the floor, here's the we just assume that how it appears to us is what it is and how it exists. Huh?
Why shouldn't I mean, unless you know better.
Yeah, that's the point. Unless you know better, then you don't even question it. Okay? Okay? Nevertheless, although all these other consciousnesses are false or mistaken because things appear truly existent, although they are not necessarily wrong or erroneous consciousnesses, because they can still identify the conventionally existent object. Okay? So, I may see the telephone as inherently existent, and it may appear to me to be inherently existent. That appearance is mistaken, it's false. Yeah. But I can still identify it's a telephone. I don't look at it and go, I wonder what that is. Yeah. I know what it is. So it's still called, my eye consciousness that can identify that is still called a conventional reliable cognizer, because it can identify just the nominally existent objects, although how those objects appear are mistaken. Okay? So if we go back to our sunglasses example, when you put on sunglasses, you can still identify the road and the car you're driving and the bushes on the side of the road, even though everything appears to you to be darker than it actually is. Okay? So like that. Okay. If, however, okay, so remember we talk about appearing object and apprehended object? Okay? So in the sense of the eye consciousness perceiving the telephone, okay, with respect to the appearing object, a truly existent telephone, that eye consciousness is mistaken. Okay? Because the telephone appears truly existent. In terms of the apprehended object, that eye consciousness is apprehending a telephone, so it's not erroneous. It knows it's a telephone. Okay. Now, let's say I get incredibly attached to this telephone. It has some deep sentimental value, because my mother and father used this telephone, and my grandparents used this telephone, and it was given to me with so much love, and I'm supposed to pass it on to my children. And it's this inherently existent telephone that has so much sentimental value, and it's my telephone, okay? At that point, to my mental consciousness, the telephone is appearing truly existent, and my mental consciousness is mistaken with respect to the appearing object. And because I'm grasping this telephone as inherently existent, then my mental consciousness is also erroneous with respect to the apprehended or conceived object, because it thinks that there's an inherently existent telephone here. Which you see embodies all this nostalgia of my grandparents and their lives and how they lived, and my parents and how much they loved me, and gave me, because I was the firstborn child, their telephone. They didn't give it to my brother. And, and I'm supposed to pass it on to my kids so the cats will get it, whatever, how it is, okay? So, then the mental consciousness is also erroneous, okay? Okay, so the eye consciousness is not erroneous, because even though it's appearing truly existent, it can identify a telephone. The I consciousness would be erroneous if it looked at this and called it a, a microphone instead. Okay. Then it would, if you think you're seeing a microphone, then that's erroneous. Okay? Then 54. A mirage seems to be water, but it is not water, nor is it real. Likewise, the aggregates seem to be a self, but they are not a self, nor are they even real. Okay, so this verse is about the aggregates don't inherently exist. Okay. So, just as the mirage appears to be water but isn't water, similarly, the 5 aggregates, body, feeling, discrimination, volitional factors, and consciousness, they all appear to be a person. Okay? Even though they aren't a person, just as the mirage appears to be water. Okay? Just as a mirage is not real, so too truly existent aggregates are not real. The aggregates do not exist truly. So not only are the aggregates not a person, but also the aggregates themselves do not truly exist. Their way of appearing and their way of existing are false. Okay? So are your aggregates a person? Are your aggregates who you are? Is your body you? Is your mind you? Are you your mental consciousness? Are you your body? Yeah? Are the aggregates a person? Yeah? Are you your body? Hello? Are you your body? Are you sure you're not your body?
No.
Why aren't you your body?
Consciousness goes continuous, right?
Yeah, because if I was my body, when my body dies, I would be over and done with.
Mm-hmm.
The consciousness goes on.
Okay. And what's the relationship between the consciousness and the person?
Without the consciousness, all you get is a dead body. You don't have a person.
Yeah. But you said, if I were my body, if the body died, then I would become nothing. But the consciousness continues on, implying that therefore the person continues on.
No, I didn't say that.
But then if the person doesn't continue on after you die?
Continues on.
Yeah, but the person doesn't?
Depends on the definition of the word person.
Well, does Tupten Sultan continue on?
No.
Does the mere I designated on all the people that the mental continuum of Tupten Sultan has been throughout beginningless time? Does that I continue on?
Merely labeled I, yes.
Yes. Okay. So there is a relationship between the I and the consciousness.
Probably.
That probably, you're just trying to cover your tush.
There's some relationship between the I and the body. I mean, otherwise we would feel like we're our body and we wouldn't have this misconception.
That's true. There's a relationship between them, but are you your body?
No, we're just confused about that relationship.
We're very confused about that relationship. Okay. Are you yeah? Go on.
Isn't the body in some way related to consciousness? Because your consciousness predetermines what sort of rebirth you'll have. So your body is in some way related to the state of your mind?
Well, in the sense that our consciousness creates karma, and then when the karma ripens, it makes us attracted to be born into a certain kind of body. Yeah.
So could you not say consciousness is a cause for a physical body?
Yeah, you could say that, but you have to, the consciousness of the previous life, yeah, is an indirect cause for the body of the future life. Okay?
Is it the cause of the body or is it the cause of that you going into that body?
Say that again.
Is it a cause of that body or is it cause of that continuum to go into that body? Is it causing a physical form or is it choosing or is it drawn to the physical form?
It's drawn to the physical form. Okay?
It's not the cause.
Have a substantial.
It's the cause for us taking that body. Maybe that's a better way to put it. In other words, your karma, there's a lot of discussion about this, what karma actually does, but from my understanding of His Holiness's explanation, okay, your body becoming what it is a process of physical causality, yeah, but your taking that body is due to your karma. But I guess in that way they sometimes say that your mind of one life causes the body of the next life, meaning that it causes the consciousness to take that body. Yeah. Yeah.
In this verse, when they say that it's not water nor is it real, but they are not the self nor even real, what are they distinguishing between but they are not the self nor is it even real? Is it that it's not an inherently existent self?
Yeah. The aggregates are not a person, and the aggregates also are not inherently existent.
In and of themselves, even real is what they're referring to.
Real means inherent existent. Just as a mirage, okay, is not water, but a mirage also is not a real thing. A mirage is it's a falsity, isn't it?
When they use
It's-
the word real, I always get confused on what they're.
Yes.
When they say real and true, I want them to really mean what actually exists, and that's where I always get confused. When they
Yeah.
use these words.
Yeah, because real and true mean different things in different contexts.
Because when we think true in our world, it means that it's as close as the actual thing as it can, where in this, true is like totally the other than what that is.
Yeah, here it means it's not truly existent. Yeah. So I think it's saying two things here. You know, the aggregates are not the person. The person is not the aggregates. Yeah. And also, the aggregates themselves are not truly existent. Yeah. So it's talking of the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena. Okay? Then 55 and 56 go together. Seeing a mirage, one might think that is water and then go up to it. If one still grasps the water thinking the water isn't here, it would be quite foolish. Likewise, it is confused to apprehend this mirage-like world as either truly existent or totally non-existent. I'm putting in the qualifying words there. If confused, one will not obtain liberation. Okay, so again, coming back to liberation is impossible without abandoning the two extremes. Okay, so the thirsty person sees the water where the mirage is, runs up to it to drink it. After they find no water there, if they thought, oh, there used to be water here, but now there isn't, that would be pretty stupid. Yeah. It's not like when they were far away there was water there, and when they got there the water suddenly evaporated. Okay, so it would be rather foolish of them to think that. Okay, there never was any water there to start with. And if they had realized that, they never would have wasted their energy running over to the mirage to try and get some water. Okay? So similarly, the aggregates appear truly existent, although they aren't. Okay? Through analysis, when we use ultimate analysis to search for what the essence of the aggregates are, and we find there's no truly existent aggregates, at that time, if we thought, oh, the aggregates used to be truly existent, but by my analyzing them, they became non-existent, that would be rather foolish, wouldn't it? You know, like, oh, these aggregates used to be truly existent, but now that I analyze them, my analysis made them disappear and they're totally non-existent now. Okay? Or they're, whatever. That would be really foolish. So had we realized sooner that truly existent things never existed, we wouldn't have suffered so much by chasing after them. Yeah? Why do we suffer so much? Because we run after things that are not real, thinking that they're real. You know? It's like running after the people on the TV screen. Yeah? It doesn't make much sense. Okay? But the problem is, it's easier for us to see there's no people on the TV screen than it is to realize that there's no truly existent people in the room here. Okay? But we think, oh, there are truly existent people, and this one's my friend, and this one's my enemy, and this one's attractive, and this one's not attractive, and this one this, and this one that. Yeah? And yet none of those people exist in the way they appear. Yeah? When you really think about it, we're all karmic bubbles, aren't we? Just karmic bubbles. Yeah, things that exist due to causes and conditions coming together to create a certain appearance at a particular moment. But there's nothing truly real in any of these appearances. Although, boy, with other people, it sure seems there is, doesn't it? You know? It seems like there's a real me in here, and there's a real you out there. You know? It seems so vivid. And yet, if that were true, we should be able to find who we really were and who you really are. And we can't. We can't. Yeah. Okay? So, if people think if it doesn't truly exist, it doesn't exist at all, they're like the person who doesn't find water and thinks that the water used to be there but disappeared. Okay? So they think things used to truly exist, and then their analysis made them totally non-existent. But those who apprehend the world, here the world means the aggregates, as neither non-existent conventionally, but those who apprehend the world, the aggregates, as either non-existent conventionally or as existent ultimately, those people are unable to understand that things were never truly existent and can only exist conventionally. Okay, let me read that again, yeah? So, those who apprehend the world, like the aggregates, okay, as either non-existent conventionally, so there's no aggregates whatsoever, or as existent ultimately, in other words, inherently, In other words, people who fall to one of the two extremes, nihilism or absolutism. Yeah, those people are unable to understand that things never were truly existent and can only exist conventionally. Okay, so without relinquishing those two views of absolutism and nihilism, then we can't free ourselves from cyclic existence. Yeah, because we're either negating too much, which is what nihilism does, or we're not negating enough, which is what absolutism does. And that's why they say it's so hard to get the middle way view. Yeah. Okay, questions? Yeah.
So this makes me think of the verse that emptiness does not make things empty, things are empty.
Right. Yeah, emptiness,
Only half of it is saying.
yeah, but emptiness doesn't make things empty. They are already empty. Yeah, and our analysis doesn't make things empty. Hmm? Yeah?
What is it that we're saying when we say the person is not the aggregate? Is it that there's a difference between the basis of designation and the designated object?
Yeah, that's one thing. The designated object and the basis of designation are not the same thing. Okay, that's one thing. But it's also, kind of challenging how we think of ourselves. This isn't just an intellectual exercise, because often we feel like I am my body. Like when you look in the mirror and you go, oh, I'm so ugly. Yeah? Or I got so old. Or whatever it is. Yeah? Then it seems like this body is me. We get mad at the body and we throw something at it. Yeah? Actually, it's not even the body. We're getting mad at the reflection in the mirror, which is even more ridiculous. Yeah, we're not even throwing something at this body because we're mad at it. We're mad at the reflection of the body. Okay? So, and the same thing if we think that our mind is us. Then we think, okay, my mind is full of anger. My mind is me. I am this solid, concrete person. So, my nature is anger. And that's the way I always have been. That's the way I always will be. So why try and do anything with my anger? And you better all learn to live with my anger because that's just the way I am. Yeah. So Buddhahood's impossible. Being happy is impossible. Because I am my angry mind. That's my identity. Okay, that's pretty rubbishy, wouldn't you think? Yeah?
Good thing it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really hard. You just see and it's inherently, everything is inherent.
Yeah, we think it's so concrete, but that's totally wrong. Yeah.
Society's making it. I'm thinking of inmates, like they have the stigma, what you gave.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, but we have to question these things, yeah? I mean, just even looking at our body, is our body our arms and legs and torso and head? Yeah, the torso and the 5 appendices, is that what our body is? Yeah, we usually would say yes, wouldn't we? Yeah, you put together the head and the 4 limbs and the torso. Yes, that's a body. Okay. But if it were really a body, then somewhere within that whole thing, we should be able to find something that is a body. Yeah. Is an arm a body? Is a leg a body? Is a torso a body? Is a head a body? They're parts of the body, but being parts of the body are not being the body. Just like being the basis of designation of the person is not being the person. Okay?
When I was asked, for the first level bodhisattvas, have all their afflictive obscurations been purified?
No. The afflictive obscurations are gradually eliminated on the first 7 bhumis, first 7 grounds, which start with the path of seeing and go into the path of meditation. By the time they get to the 8th ground, then all the afflictive obscurations are gone. Okay, so it's not like you realize emptiness directly and whammo, you're liberated the next moment. No, it's like our mind's been, had this true grasping since beginningless time. So we need to meditate a lot on emptiness with this directly perceiving mind in order to really take all those wrong views out. Mm-hmm.
With our classes with Guy and Jeffrey, we've been talking about how for the Prasanicas, it's not like there's a basis of designation and you are designating an object like as if it's a label, like that, but that you're designating the whole object. I'm not understanding that. The distinction, like it's not about a label.
Yeah, okay, so it's a translation term. The reason Jeffrey doesn't like the term label is it sounds like, how we have the little white labels and we write a name on it and then we stick it on something? It sounds like that, and that's not we're not writing little white labels and sticking them on things, okay? There is a basis of designation, and then we are associating a word or a sound with it for the ease of communication. Yeah? So instead of saying, the tall nun at the Abbey with the round glasses and the blonde hair, who people sometimes think is me, even though she's 5 inches taller than me, is walking across the room. Okay? That's a little bit wordy, it's a little bit difficult, so we say Venerable Tarpa instead. Yeah? Okay?
I find it helpful, the Buddhist name we have so much meaning, so versus, for example, some names in the West, they're more something like, oh, this is the personality, this is Susan with her. I don't know, nowadays many names don't have meaning anymore.
Yeah.
Like Köthen or Pema or whatever has
Yeah.
meaning that is not connected with something special in yourself.
Yeah, although we make it that way. Yeah, that our Tibetan names have a meaning, whereas a lot of times our Western names are just nice sounding sounds. Yeah, that we then say, oh, that's what I am. But, our Tibetan names give us some kind of inspiration to become a certain way. Yeah, although we very soon grasp onto those things too. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. What year were you born in? 77. Okay. So what year was Venerable Jampa born in? What year was she born in?
13.
Well, no, you know, somebody, I asked her what year she was born in, and she told me. She understood. Yeah. But did Venerable Jamba actually exist in 1977? No. But it's perfectly all right to say she was born in 1977, even though she didn't exist then.
But it was a continuation of something.
Yeah. But she hadn't received the name Venerable Jampa at that point. She was just Daniela Mieritz. Did I say it right? Yeah.
And was she in fact born when she was given the name Venerable Japa?
No. So Venerable Jampa was never born. The unborn.
I was just really curious about something that Jeffrey Hopkins said at our last session.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the whole thing, but he was saying about space.
Mm-hmm.
The space inside this hall, the space outside. Is space something that we also designate or impute?
Mm.
I don't want to say label, but does space fall under the same category as, let's say, a laptop, a water bottle?
Okay. Okay, there's two kinds of space. He was talking about unconditioned space. Yeah? So unconditioned space is the pure absence of obstruction. Okay? And so unconditioned space exists everywhere, even where objects exist, because the thermos can't be here unless there is an absence of obstruction already there so that it can fill it in a way, okay? So that kind of space is unconditioned. It's, you know, all these other things are conditioned by causes and so on. Unconditioned space is not produced by causes, okay? So it's a little bit different, but it also is merely designated, yeah, on the absence of obstruction.
The space inside Chenrezig Hall we're in now.
Okay, now the space inside Chenrezig Hall is a little bit different than, you know, because we can kind of see the space inside Chenrezig Hall. So that's a different kind of space. Yeah, when you talk, that space can change because you can make Chenrezig Hall smaller or bigger. Yeah, but the space he was talking about was the unconditioned one. Yeah, it's just the absence of obstruction. It's an absence, it's a negative phenomena. Okay. And emptiness is compared to that kind of space because emptiness also is a negative phenomena. It's an absence of true existence. Yeah. So there's nothing positive there to grab onto.